Hi guys, my name's Sabine and welcome to 50% of Bookian. Today I'm going to be recommending you a bunch of books because that's what we do on this channel. We recommend books and we talk about books because books are awesome. It's reading someone else's mind. Now, the books I'm gonna recommend to you, they're not gonna be like freaking Harry Potter, man. I mean, you should have read Harry Potter by now. I'm not gonna do famous books that everybody knows about. The first book I will be recommending to you is the first because it was at the top of the pile, haha. And it is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. I'd actually read a Patrick Ness book after I read this one, but it wasn't that, it was okay. It made me cry though, which books rarely make me do because I do not cry in fictional things. But yeah, that book made me cry. And this book, this is meant to be sadder than that book, but this didn't make me cry, but it is fantastic. It's bloody fantastic. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I love books that show that there is no good side and there is no bad side, and that good people do bad things and bad people do good things, and there are no such things as bad people and good people, and that people are people, and that whole mindset. I love books like that because it shows humanity and shows that what you're doing isn't a sin. It's not wrong because you're just doing what you do. You do how I do what you do. And this book's like that. It's about this kid, and a monster visits him every night and sort of tells him stories. And the thing that I love most about the stories that he tells are that the heroes aren't the heroes and the villains aren't the villains. Nobody's the typical anything. And yeah, this is a damn good book. And one more reason you should read it. It has crazy gorgeous illustrations. It's not scary. Don't you worry, child. Okay, next book recommending to you is not fantasy. It is a romance, and I rarely like romances, but this one isn't that sort of cheesy romance, and it's just so well written. It's Why We Broke Up by Daniel Handler. This genre of book, I necessarily don't always enjoy. I usually don't like this genre of book. I'm not saying it's a bad genre. It's just not necessarily my favorite, and I don't think it's even in my favorites. But this was damn good. I love the way it's written. Daniel Handler is a freaking genius, man. His series of unfortunate events, that's what got me into reading in the first place. And this, I love the way that... Okay, I love the way that Min describes movies. Okay, right, getting to what this is about. It's about basically Min and Ed and why they broke up, and, typical sort of, that's just it, right? But the writing, I want to eat it. I love books with good writing, right? Everyone loves books with good writing, but for me, plot isn't the main thing. Plot is probably like 20% of what I look for in a book. Writing is very important to me, and the writing in this is so good. Min often describes... Min is a cinemaphile. A cinemaphile? Min is a cinemaphile. And the way she describes scenes in movies, which aren't real movies, they were made up for the purposes of this book, but the way she describes them are so vivid and so well done and just gorgeously done. Gorgeous. Next, switching it up, we have fantasy again, which is probably my favorite fantasy book of all time. It's Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. Now, remember when I said that the plot isn't the main thing for me? This plot was so good that is the main thing for me, and it was my favorite fantasy book. Compare this with frickin' Game of Thrones. That's a big deal. I don't want to oversell this, though, because I feel like it catered to my really obscure specific tastes, but I will recommend it to you because it's frickin' worth reading. It's got one of the greatest plot twists I've ever read about. It is the most misleading, frustratingly brilliant piece of fantasy I have ever read. And I love how some parts are just so real. Like, you don't have these heroic, majestic scenes. You have scenes where the guy goes, oh, for fuck's sake, and you just... Oh my... It's just really brilliant. Read it. Read it if you like fantasy. Read it if you like sci-fi. The next book I'm gonna recommend is, again, not a fantasy book. And I have actually talked about it recently in my July reading reviews video. And it is probably one of my top 3 favorite books, right? If Prince of Thorns is one of the top 3, this is also in the top 3. And I really can't rank them because you can't compare these 3 books. But anyway, so this is in the top 3. It's an anti-war book. It's red and yellow. It's brilliant. It's Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Guys. This book is really good, okay? If you don't like war, who likes war, man? If you don't like war, if you like thinking about stuff, and the thing about this book is that it doesn't try to be cool. It doesn't try to show that, you know, nice things aren't cool. It shows that beautiful things are beautiful, and humanity is great, and humanity is beautiful, and that we should focus on the good times, and that's what I loved so much about this book. It was a war book, but it was so positive, and it was so beautiful, and everything was beautiful, and nothing hurt. Which is actually not my favorite line in this book. My favorite line is, "That's one thing Earthlings might learn to do, if they tried hard enough. Ignore the awful times and concentrate on the good ones." I don't know, you know what? Cheesy is not a thing. There's no such thing as cheesy, man. Cheesy is what cool people call lovely things, call beautiful things, because this book is beautiful. Read it. Next book recommending to you is a fantasy book. And I know I told you that I'm not going to recommend any books that are like super duper popular, but I have to recommend this to you because I know a lot of people try to avoid it because it is a monster of a book. But it's really worth reading. It's worth the 2 months you're probably going to spend reading it. Guys, it's Game of Thrones. Everyone watches Game of Thrones. And for good reason, man. There's so many reasons that people love the series, you know, the show or the books. The world is so rich, and the characters are so developed, and the storyline is brilliant, and it's so convoluted, and so many reasons. And I love all those reasons, but like I said, the thing that I love most about this is that the characters are so realistic. They make decisions that people would make in real life, you know? And when you talk to other people about it, you never ever have the same views for all the characters as anybody else, because one person will like this character, another person will loathe that character. I know all you guys hate Cersei. I freaking love Cersei, man. I think she's badass, and I think it's cool that she protects her children. Everybody acts from a reasonable motive, you know? You hear their motive and you understand it and you relate to it, and everyone can relate to a character in this book, even just a little bit, because the characters are so diverse. There's such a wide variety of characters with such a wide variety of ideas and emotions and motivations, and it's just so brilliant. One will work for money, but he'll only work for money because that's all he cares about, but he'll be working with the good guys and he'll be doing good stuff. And one will be working to protect her family and she loves them really a lot, but she'll be doing like really sucky stuff, you know? It's that kind of book. And the thing is, they're not consistent, which is a good thing. So you'll have that character and then she'll change and she'll become really good, but for doing bad stuff, you know? It's really complex. It's like the human brain. It's so complex, and apart from that, George R. R. Martin does such a brilliant job of world building. It's like you're reading a history book. It's like stepping into things, to real events, because the writing is so rich in detail, and it's not even boring detail. You get the lore, and you get the history, and you get everything. It's just brilliant. And if you've been putting this off because it's like 1,000 pages, take your time with it, because it's so worth it. Okay, the next book is the third book in my trinity of favorite books. The first one being Prince of Thorns, Slaughterhouse-Five, in no order. And the last one being Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. And that's pronounced Palahniuk, guys. Okay, I watched the movie before I read the book. And if you have, that's totally okay, because you will love this book for a completely different reason than you loved the movie, if you loved the movie. If you didn't, read the book anyway, because I actually don't think they are anything alike. And it teaches you a lot of stuff. I don't know if all the stuff in here is true, but if it is, that's pretty badass. It's informative, it's interesting, there's not a single boring page in this book, and I beg you to read it. You won't even read this for the storyline. If you read this for the storyline, it would be pretty boring, because we've already seen the movie, right? I love this not for the storyline. I love it for the writing. Palahniuk is a genius. I love the lack... I love how everything is so raw. That's the thing of Fight Club, right? You just get down to the raw animal stuff. I don't know. But... And even in the writing, it's like that. The way Palahniuk writes, he doesn't write like, oh, my coffee tasted like a warm summer in Paris, which I spent with my former lover, Jacques. He writes it so straightforward and so raw and just as it is, without any frou-frou or gaudiness or whatever you want to call it on top. If he'll describe a scene like that, he'll just say, my coffee tasted like coffee. And that was what I loved so much about it, and it's so good. The writing, guys. The writing is genius. It's like poetry. Let's have a look at the Trinity. Trinity of my favorite books. So yeah, those are the books that I'm recommending to you guys. And I hope that before you die, you read at least one of them, because they're really good. I picked only the best of the best. Remember, these are 15 years worth, no, well, 16 next month. 16 years worth of reading material. So these are the best books I've read within the span of 16 years. So, yeah. Bye! Hi to the camera!
No.